Okay, so now I'm recording. So again, our topic is about the different unifying themes of life. So pa-explain natin yung title ng ating lesson for today. So bakit nga ba siya tinatawag na unifying themes of life? Kasi the characteristics that we will be learning on today is found in all living organisms. Kaya siya tinawag na unifying theme. Ibig sabihin, ito yung mga bagay na pare-pareho sila. Regardless of the size or what kind of organism it is. As long as meron siya nitong mga characteristics na to, that you can classify them as living organisms. So kapag ang isang organism ay wala nitong mga characteristics na to, automatic, hindi siya pwedeng masabi na living organism. And at the same time, these unifying themes will act like a checklist. So when we say checklist, ibig sabihin, dapat masatisfy niya lahat ng characteristics na ito. Kapag meron siyang isang characteristic na kulang, automatic yon, hindi mo siya pwedeng sabihin na living organism. So lahat ng organisms that we consider to have life in our planet must have all, and I mean everything, all of these characteristics. May isang kulang, automatic hindi na siya living organism. Okay, so that's why we call it as the unifying themes of life. Kasi lahat ng may buhay ay meron nito. Okay, so which leads us to our essential question for this discussion. So our essential question is, what are the characteristics that you can observe or you can find out in all living organisms? So ano nga ba itong mga themes na ito, itong mga characteristics na ito? Okay, so we are going to discuss them one by one. Okay, so the first characteristic or unifying themes of life is what we call as organization. So when we say organization, this is actually related to the postulate of the cell theory that says that cell is the basic unit of life. So when we say the idea that cell is the basic unit of life, it means that pinakamaliit na possible na living organism is composed of one cell. Kaya nga nagkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag nating multicellular organisms and unicellular organisms. So ibig sabihin, meron tayong mga living organisms na napakaliit nila, they are only composed of one cell. Pero meron naman tayong mga big and complex organisms such as humans that are made up of millions of cells, and that is what we call as multicellular organism. So even if the organism is small, that it is only made up of one cell, we can consider them as living organism because it still has life. Okay, so some of the common examples of unicellular organisms include your bacteria. Okay, so lalong-lalo na yung, for example, when you drink Yakult, there are good bacteria in your Yakult drink, such as yung lactobacillus. Okay, so you cannot see them with your naked eye because they're very small, they're unicellular, but they're actually living organisms. The same when you eat bread, kaya umalsa yung tinapay na yun is because nilagyan siya ng yeast. And yeast is a unicellular organism under the kingdom fungi. Okay? And some of the pictures here that you will see are examples of unicellular organisms. So for example, this is your red blood cell. Actually, the second picture here is also a picture of a red blood cell. Medyo black and white lang yung isang picture. This one is a picture of the cells found in your skin. And this one, I think, is what yeast looks like under the compound microscope. So all living organisms are composed of cells. It doesn't matter how many cells they are composed of, as long as there are cells in that organism, then you can classify them as living organisms. Okay? So the first one is always organization. And then when we talk about organization, it also means that there is a certain chronological arrangement to them. And in biology, because cell is the basic unit of life, it means that ang pinakamaliit is cells. And when we put cells that have the same function together, then we are going to create what we call as your tissues. Okay, so for example, cells found in the heart, when you put them together, you will create the tissues in the heart, or cardiac tissues, heart tissues. And then when you put these tissues together, then they will form what we call as your organs. So mas malaki yung organs compared to your tissues. And if we are going to put organs, different organs together, such as the heart and the arteries and the veins, so now we are going to form what we call as your organ system. And when we put different organ systems together, such as the circulatory system, working in tandem with the digestive system and the nervous system and the respiratory system, now we are forming what we call as an organism. So if you can see, meron silang pagkakasunod-sunod, or what we call as arrangement from smallest to biggest. And if we're going to continue this arrangement, and we're going to put multiple organisms together, for example, the organism is a cat, and we're going to combine or group 20 cats together living in the same area, then we are going to form what we call as population. And then from this population of cats, gusto nating dagdagan ng panibagong organisms, such as the cats living with humans and dogs and other organisms, then we are going to form what we call as community. And then from this community, we are going to add your abiotic factors, or the non-living components, and we are going to form what we call as your ecosystem. So meron siyang order from biggest to smallest because life is very organized. Okay, so meron tayong tinatawag na organization when it comes to living organisms. So from the smallest, which is your cell, down to the biggest, which is the biosphere, all of those are composed of living organisms arranged chronologically from smallest to biggest. Okay, so very organized. Parang ok-ok nga daw kasi ang ating creator. There is a very fine attention to detail, to the point na lahat planado. Walang nangyari by accident lang. Everything was planned, everything has a reason. Because our creator is very organized when it comes to creating. Okay, so do we have any questions about the idea of organization? Pa-thumbs up sign ako if we can continue to our next slide. Okay, sige. So now let's go to the next idea, or the next theme, unifying themes of all living organisms. So sabi nga niya dito, lahat daw ng living organisms, or all of organisms that have life, actually need energy. So kailangan natin ng energy to do all of the activities that we are doing. And even if we are not doing anything, your body is using energy. So for example, when you are sleeping, kahit na natutulog ka, hindi naman tumigil yung circulatory system mo into pumping blood all over your body. Hindi naman tumigil, tumibok yung puso mo. The same when it comes to your nervous system. Hindi naman siya nag-stop coordinating the different organs in your body. The same when it comes to your respiratory system. Kahit natutulog ka, hindi ka naman tumitigil huminga. So the oxygen and the carbon dioxide continues circulating all over your body. And all of those processes, or all of those activities, require energy. So all living organisms use energy, and we have different means gathering this kind of energy. How? By eating. So bakit nga ba tayo kumakain? So may mga tao dito kumakain ng 3 times a day. Most of you are eating more than 3 times a day. So may late breakfast, may snack, may lunch, may snack ulit, tas dinner, tas may snack ulit, and another snack. Diba? Kain kayo ng kain. Kain tayo ng kain. And the reason why we are always eating is because we need a lot of energy for the different activities that our body do, for all of the chemical reactions that happen in our body. All of those require energy. And the more active we are, the more energy you are using, it means na mas marami ka dapat kinakain. So for those of you who are very active athletically, or for example, kung kayo ay mga nagbabike or mahilig sa basketball, kung mapapansin ninyo, the more rigorous your activity is, the more kayo parang mas gutom, mas marami yung nakakain ninyo. Compared kapag hindi kayo ganun ka-active, medyo passive yung lifestyle ninyo, hindi kayo masyadong malakas kumain. Or supposedly, hindi kayo dapat malakas kumain. Kasi pagka passive, tapos malakas kumain, then that's a combination ng overweight or obesity. So, when we acquire energy, it means that we need to ingest food. Ibig sabihin, kailangan natin kumain, kailangan natin magpasok ng pagkain sa katawan natin. And pag nakapasok na yung food na to inside our body, it does not stop there. It has to be digested by the body. Kasi yung tinapay or yung kanin na kinain mo, hindi naman siya kaya pang gamitin ng katawan mo. It has to be converted into its simplest form na kayang gamitin ng katawan mo. So the rice is a carbohydrate and it has to be digested into its simplest form in the form of glucose, a monosaccharide. Kasi yun yung kayang gamitin ng katawan mo. The same when you eat pork, kahit gaano siya kamahal ngayon, mas mahal pa siya sa baka. Okay? Yung pork na yan or yung beef na yan cannot be used immediately by the body. It has to be converted into its simplest form. So your meat is classified under proteins. It has to be digested into amino acids para magamit siya ng iyong katawan. At pag na-digest na siya at na-convert na siya into the simplest form na kayang gamitin ng katawan mo, saka pa lang siya i-absorb ng katawan. So if you can still remember, kasi ito ay topic ng grade 8 sa junior high school, diba? When you eat food, it enters through your mouth, so that is your ingestion. And then it goes to your stomach, which will digest the food that you eat. And then from the stomach, it will go to your small intestine, which will continue with the digestion of the food that you eat. Tapos, pag na-digest na siya, sa small intestine, saka pa lang ulit siya i-absorb in the small intestine. Okay? So, pag na-absorb na yung glucose at saka yung amino acid, saka na siya ipapasa ng katawan mo to the circulatory system. And the circulatory system will now distribute these nutrients or this energy, the glucose specifically, to the different cells in your body. And you have to remember na hindi lahat ng kinain mo is actually digested and is actually absorbed by your body. Merong mga parts ng kinakain mo na hindi usable sa katawan mo. And those have to be excreted. So when we say excretion, ibig sabihin, kailangan mailabas mo siya. So every day, you urinate or every day meron kayong bowel movement, okay? In the form of your urine and feces, di ba? Kasi those are non-usable or toxic siya sa katawan mo. Hindi siya magagamit at the same time toxic siya. So kailangan mo siyang ilabas. Because not everything that you eat is actually absorbed by the body. So, yung pagkain natin, the action of eating, is actually a means of living organisms acquiring the necessary energy that is needed for the different activities and chemical reactions that happen in your body. So let's try to analyze itong mga sagot ninyo. Okay? So yung grupo ni Virgil Valdez, Derhel, ayan. So isa sa capability ng organism niya ay number 1, kumakain daw. Nag-i-eat yung kanyang organism. Although hindi niya in-specify kung ano yung specific na kinakain ng kanyang organism. Kasi may mga organism na ang kinakain ay puro plant-based food lang, yung mga vegetarians or herbivores. Meron namang mga organisms na ang kinakain is meat products or yung tinatawag nating carnivores. Meron namang it's a combination of both. Meron namang, for example, itong, yung example ko? Ito, yung lamok, ang ginakain niya is yung blood. So it's not meat, but it's also not fruits and vegetables. So may mga ganyan tayong organisms. As long as they are getting food so that it can be converted into usable energy. Itong grupo ni Madeline, kumakain din ang kanyang organism, pero ang kanyang food very specific. Ang kinakain niya ay sand. Diba? Kaya nga sabi niya, yung organism niya, ang habitat is under the sand. It lives under the sand at yung sand din yung kanyang pagkain. Okay, so, yan. This is an example of gathering and utilizing energy. Another, meron ba? Ayan, yung grupo ni John Paul, Louis Jean, and Princess Almira. Sabi niya, it is an organism that can eat anything. So kahit ano daw pwedeng kainin. Okay, so pwede siyang kumain ng plant variety, pwede siyang kumain ng meat variety, does it also mean na pwede siyang kumain ng sand at saka ng wood? Okay, kasi ang sabi nila, anything. At sabi niya, very specific, ang itsura daw ng kanilang organism, merong malaking ilong. Kasi yung nose na yon ang ginagamit nila to find or hunt food. So, nag-gather siya ng food, nag-hunt siya ng food kasi kailangan niya ng energy sa kanyang katawan. Okay? So, very specific yung kanilang description. Next, ito namang grupo ni John Luis Cayaban, ganun din. It is capable of eating, pero instead of sand or anything, ito namang kanilang organism can eat soil and rocks. Okay? Next, grupo ni Ivan. Ito pala yung grupo ni Ivan tsaka ni... Sino yung kanina? Ayun, si Madeline. Magkagrupo ata sila kasi iisa yung kanilang description that it can eat sand. Ito namang grupo ni Daniela Anoras, ni Stephanie at saka ni Myla Coloma, capable of eating din yung kanilang organism. Pero sa kanila, ang kinakain ay vegetables and fruits. So ito siguro yung organism na medyo vegetarian. Okay? Ayun din, grupo ni Chensen, capable of eating din ang kanilang organism, although it is not specified kung ano yung specific na food ng kanilang organism. Grupo ni Cassie, Mizan, at saka ni Francine, ayan, ang kinakain daw ng kanilang organism X ay bacteria or small microorganisms. Okay yan. Okay, so pwede yan. Okay, so as you can see, yung idea ninyo ng isang living organism, automatic nandun yung idea ng pagkain. Kaya nga halos lahat kayo, included sa characteristics nyo yung idea ng pagkain. And the reason why kumakain tayo is because we are getting energy from these food that we are eating. So hindi tayo kumakain ng dahil lang sa masarap siya. Hindi tayo kumakain ng dahil lang habit yon na kapag umaga may tinatawag na breakfast, tapos may lunch, tapos may dinner. The reason why our body needs to eat is because doon nang gagaling yung energy na ginagamit natin. At kung napapansin ninyo, kapag hindi kayo kumakain or minsan nalipasan kayo ng gutom, nakalimutan yung kumain, or konti lang yung kinain ninyo, kung napapansin ninyo, parang nanghihina kayo. Up to some point. Yung iba, pag masyado nang mababa yung sugar level, nag-hypothermia na sila, so nanginginig na sila or namumutla na. It's because it's the body's way of telling you na low-bat na yung katawan mo. At kapag ang cellphone natin ay na low-bat, ano ba yung ginagawa natin? We charge our cell phones. So, ganun din yung katawan. The way in which we charge our bodies and replenish the amount of energy na meron sa katawan natin is through the process of eating. Okay? And you have to remember, the bigger an organism is, the more energy that it uses. So habang lumalaki ang isang organism, mas marami yung kailangan niyang kainin kasi mas mataas yung kanyang energy requirement. Kapag ang isang organism ay maliit, ibig sabihin, konti lang yung ginagamit niyang energy. So kahit konti lang din yung kainin niya, okay lang. Okay? So, ayan, do we have any question when it comes to the acquisition of energy? Or medyo malinaw naman siya? Alam ko yung iba dyan talagang favorite hobby ang pagkain. But it's not just a hobby. We do it for a reason. Okay? Now, let's go to the third characteristic of living organisms, which is metabolism and the use of energy. So, connected ito doon sa acquiring of energy. Kanina, ang focus lang niya is that different organisms have a means to gather food and has a means to digest this food so that it can be absorbed by the body. So, ngayon naman, when it comes to metabolism, nung na-absorb na yung energy na yon, gagamitin na siya ng ating katawan. And the picture that I included here is the idea of ATP. Kasi in our body, the cellular unit for energy is what we call as ATP or the adenosine triphosphate. So this is the adenosine, which is a sugar compound connected to 3 molecules of phosphate. Phosphate 1, phosphate 2, and phosphate 3. Kaya ang tawag sa kanya ay adenosine triphosphate dahil meron siyang 3 phosphate connected to the adenosine. Okay, so this is our cellular unit of energy. And all of the different activities in our body requires ATP. So, even yung simple activity na ngumiti ka, nakita mo si crush, natuwa ka sa kanya, so ngumiti ka, napasaya ka, ngumiti ka. And do you know that your face contains majority of the muscles in your body? Napakadaming muscles in your face. And one of the, the activities that require a lot of muscles to relax and to, to make you smile, ayan, is you smiling. So, mas marami daw ang ginagamit na muscles sa mukha mo kapag ikaw ay sumibangot compared kapag ikaw ay ngumiti. Mas konting muscles yung required when you are smiling. But regardless, any movement in your body requires the use of ATP. So, yung nag-blink yung mata mo, yung ngiti ka, umupo ka dyan, that requires a lot of energy. Yung katawan mo, dinigest yung food na kinain mo, that requires energy. Yung temperature mo, na-maintain niya at 37 or 38 degrees, that is a process that requires energy. Pag may nakapasok na bacteria sa katawan mo or virus, nagkaroon ka ng lagnat, ibig sabihin, yung katawan mo, itinaas yung temperature mo into 39 degrees, that requires energy. So basically, everything in your body requires a lot of energy. Kaya nga, we are eating so that we can get this energy. Okay? Next is the idea of growth and development. One of the things that requires energy is the process of growth and development. And when we talk about growth, we are not just talking about an increase in size. Kasi most of you, pagka sinabing you are growing, ibig sabihin, tumatangkad ka, lumalaki ka. So that's the initial idea when it comes to growth. Pero when we talk about growth, we are also talking about what we call as an increase in number. So dumadami siya. So for example, when it comes to humans, initially we started with just one cell. So when you were conceived, na-fertilize yung egg cell at saka sperm cell, it produced one cell only, a fertilized egg. So unicellular ang ating origin. And then this unicellular fertilized egg will start dividing to form 2 cells, and then magiging 4 cells, magiging 8 cells, 16, 32, hanggang sa maging tinatawag na natin siyang fetus. So that is considered as growth, na dumami yung cell number niya. So habang dumadami yung cell number, ibig sabihin, lumalaki din ng lumalaki yung size. And all living organisms, regardless if it's humans or animals or plants, we increase in size and we increase in terms of number. So for example, even your plants, tumatangkad sila, nag-start sa iisang seed, yung seed naging sprout, yung sprout naging tree. So tumangkad siya ng tumangkad. So measurable yung kanyang growth and development. Especially when it comes to development, when we start as a fetus, hindi naman kompleto yung mga organs inside our body. Syempre, ang pinakaunang nag-form is the brain and the heart. Pag na-develop na yung brain and the heart, the other accessory organs will now start to develop. The same when it comes to your plants. Ano ba yung unang tumutubo doon sa buto? It's actually the roots. Kasi yung roots ang kukuha ng mga nutrients, followed by the leaf. Kasi yun yung magpo-provide ng food through the process of photosynthesis. Ano yung mga pinakahuling nagde-develop sa isang plant? It's the flowers and the fruits na pinakahuling nagde-develop, di ba? Pero ang pinakauna is yung kailangan muna niya, the leaves and the roots. So that is what we call as development. If we're going to focus on the development of humans, then you can say that we start from fetus and then the fetus will become a baby. Lalo na pag pinanganak na, the baby will become a toddler, the toddler will become a child, the child will become an adolescent or a teenager, the adolescent will become an adult, and then the adult will become an old person. Diba? So meron pa rin tayong tinatawag na growth and development. And if we are going to relate this idea of growth and development to our memory verse for today, ano nga ba yung memory verse natin for today? Saglit, balik tayo. Sino ang naka-memorize ng memory verse? Yung 1 Corinthians chapter 13, I think, and then number 11 to 12. Sino ang naka-memorize? Wala. Sayang, magbibigay sana ako ng +5 sa naka-memorize doon sa ating memory verse for today. Last chance, raise of hands. Sinong naka-memorize? Wala. Okay, sige. So, ayan, tama nga. 1 Corinthians, verse 13, 11 to 12. So, sabi niya dito, when I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. And when I become an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. So sabi niya dito sa ating memory verse for the day. So in yung ating, anong tawag dito? Yung ating paniniwala, yung ating faith, yung ating belief, and what we know about God. Siyempre, it starts with something little, very like a child. So as of right now, sabi niyang ganon, very childish yung ating understanding of God kasi hindi pa natin alam completely yung mystery of the creation, the mystery of our Creator. So syempre, yung idea natin is incomplete. So sabi nga niya, para kang nakatingin sa isang salamin na malabo kasi hindi pa complete yung ating understanding. And sabi niya, pero there will come a time when we will be reunited with our Creator at malalaman at maiintindihan na natin ng complete yung idea of our belief and our religion. So sabi niya ganon, okay lang if right now simple lang yung understanding natin. So sabi nga niya dito, it is not actually wrong to live as children. But what's important is that we continue our journey. We continue our learning about our faith and about our belief. Okay, so unti-unti we will develop and we will grow. So sabi niya ganon, unti-unti mas nag-i-increase yung ating spiritual awareness. Mas nakikilala natin yung ating sarili through the words of God, through the different actions that we do. And then there will come a time that we will understand completely yung tinatawag na spiritual truth. And sabi nila, this time na maiintindihan natin siya ng buo is the time when we are reunited with Christ. Okay? So, even us, physically we are growing and developing. Mentally, we are also developing and growing. Kasi syempre, nung bata kayo, hindi naman ganun kalalim yung understanding